Well, hello. This is a weird one. As you probably already can tell from the title, you know what this is about. I will address this first. I did my best to finish Norman Bouton's magnum opus, and who knows, maybe in another video I actually did read those final chapters, but at this current moment, I didn't, because reading this book is like reading fucking dirt. It is incredibly boring, and I just can't listen to Teresa complain about nothing and then solve it 5 seconds later. So, I decided to move on to something that, from what I hear, is at least more entertaining. And from what I've read so far, yeah. So, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? Or rather, the onion. That's right, I'm reading Stones to Abbigale. Don't ask me why. And this first chapter, a lot of stuff gets said. It's incredibly ambitious. I'll say that. But it does read like, honestly, like fan fiction. It reads with the very broken paragraphs and do very succinct little bits that come out with certain bits of information and things happening. Now, that's not necessarily the worst thing. I actually don't mind that. I know a lot of other people who critique this kind of stuff are also, like, you know, literary critics and incredibly intelligent people who went to college for this kind of thing, but I will give Gregory this one point. I don't mind that. Actually, it doesn't bother me too bad. It's a little weird seeing it in an actual published work, but, I mean, shit, I've seen weirder things, so that's okay. I'll give him that. That's fine. Doesn't bother me. A lot of stuff does happen very, very quickly, which again makes this also feel very fan-fiction-y, but I used to read really, really terrible fan fiction on this channel a lot, so again, not the biggest negative point. Actually, I can say this too. These are the more good points. We'll start with the good points and then get to the bad ones, I guess, since we're kind of moving in that direction anyway. So we'll start with the good points here. This whole thing moving very quickly and kind of giving out all kinds of weird little expository information and silly little blips of kind of nothing. Again, I read a lot of fan fiction, and a lot of the people who I've also seen critique this have said that a lot of this does read like fan fiction, and they don't like that. And I can safely say you haven't read the worst fan fictions, so believe me when I say that this is actually not nearly as bad as some of the other things I've seen. This is actually much better than some of the other things I've seen. That being said, this is also the first chapter, so, you know, we're not going to get huge into every single thing, but a lot of stuff does happen. There's a lot of things. James, our main character, is a very, you know, disaffected emo boy, and what I assume is like the mid to late 2000s, maybe into like the 2010s high school environment. But it's also like a fan fiction kind of high school environment, so there's, you know, your jocks and your preps and your smart, you nerds and all this other stuff. And, yeah, okay. Yeah, alright. That doesn't really surprise me, nor does the fact that, like, Greg's age when writing this, because it doesn't, a lot of other critics have said, like, it does not read as though this was written by a teenage boy, because this is supposed to be a story that is written by a teenage boy. But again, I will go with the fact that this is just the first chapter, so I may be wrong come later chapters. And secondly, it's not written like a teenage boy. It's written like someone who is writing the stereotyped ideal of what this is. Which again is not the worst thing ever. We literally have pop culture that does that all the time. That's fine. I don't mind that. I've seen worse things. I've seen people when they try to be super edgy or way too into it, and then we come out with shit, like Cold Steel the Hedgehog and fucking Sonic High School and shit like that. So I've seen far worse things. This is not awful. He has a huge crush on a girl named Abbi. Except that he spells her name Abbi, and this is my own particular hang-up with this, is every time I see that, I think about that joke from Young Frankenstein about Abby Normal. I'm pretty positive that's not what he was going for, so I'm not gonna, deduct points or anything for that. That's my own hang-up, and it just kind of makes me giggle a little because I'm kind of stupid. So, she's, kind of an artsy girl, and he's kind of an emo boy, so yeah, okay, they like each other. They don't like the jocks, but there's, a very strange kind of connection here. There's a strange moment, not connection. Connection's the wrong word. There's a weird moment that happens right in here, where, okay, she doesn't want to work with, Jason, the jock boy for the class project. She wants to work with James. So it's kind of obvious that she likes him and he likes her. And so she's just like, oh, can I work with him? And Jason makes a legitimately kind of okay-ish joke. It's a silly thing, but he's literally just like, oh, I didn't know I smelled bad. Haha, I guess that's why you didn't want to work with me. Generally just kind of being, kind of like, oh, no hard feelings, silly about it. And the project, and I bring that up because we get a basic understanding of, these are the jock boys, there was a fight in the hall, and they were all there, to which James is like, the crude creatures would just watch each other tear each other apart, as if it would entertain them, which is a weird thing to focus on, but okay. But sure, I guess, if that's where your mind wants to go. So, their art teacher, Mrs. Stanley, has this idea about, being incredibly creative. You're going to bring something into class, and then you're going to disassemble it, and combine it with something that your partner has brought into class to make two individual things into one, creative outlet. To make a thing, to, do that. And Jason, is just kind of like, hey, I don't really want to break something of mine. I get it, it's a project, but, this is kind of demanding of, my personal possessions, and I'm just not cool with that. And she says, and I'm quoting, "We'll supply you with toilet paper rolls, we have plenty of extras around here," to which he just kind of comments oh, friggin' great, just being sarcastic. And to which she says, are you sure your grade shouldn't suffer that much if you two just take Alice's piss jar and tape it to a toilet paper roll? You're already failing this class. So first off, Alex didn't do anything to this woman. He's literally just there. And she just, I guess, wants to make fun of him too. And says this horrible thing to this child. They're in high school, okay? I don't care how muscular and tall the jock boy is. The jock boy is 16, 17 years old. He's a child. You're an adult. That is a child. That's super uncool, but alright. And as a weird aside, because I noticed some other people said this too, they're just why with the art thing not be in the school with these portable buildings, these little trailers that he has to go to for art class. I'm assuming from the way that Greg describes this that when he was in high school it was a bit like the one that I was in, which I went to a really fucking broke ass junior high too, and one of the grade halls was actually just that. It was a bunch of portable buildings, and there was this deck kind of thing that went between them. And yeah, so that's not really that surprising to me. That actually is a thing. So And I kind of had, like, weird nostalgia whenever he said that. And it's like, yeah, I had to go into, like, this weird trailer thing, and there's, like, these shared desks. And I was like, did we go to the fucking same high school? It's kind of weird, but, you know, that's a weird side note. But back to the original point. And the original point here is that she basically says this to what is, again, a child. And it's, like, not cool that you would say that. Because, you know, he's a kid. But, okay, you know, just call him out for his bad grades in this class or whatever, and then move on. Because she just does that. She just moves on. And, like, Abbi and James are just like, oh my god, I can't believe she said that, oh wow. And it's really awkward. Like, it's like the only thing I can think of is there's a line from, like, Clerks that really comes to mind every time something like that happens in one of these books, where it's just, like, shocking abuse of authority. And, yeah, that's all I can think of, is it's kind of just that. So, they kind of work on this idea for this project about how they're gonna get stuff to do this, and she says something about bringing a hamster cage for the project, and James is like, oh, I'm sorry, did your hamster die? And she's like, no, I never got one, the cage was just a gift from my dad. To which James replies, understandably, your dad didn't get you a hamster, but he got you the cage? And she just kind of seems like she was just losing her smile, as the way he puts it. Her smile was fading. And I don't understand the significance of this. Like, it's a legitimate question. If she's not comfortable answering, like, why her dad didn't get her the hamster for the cage, why even bring the cage up? You know, just don't do that. It is a little odd. It's a very odd decision to do that, and I don't know. It kind of just seems like drama to be built for the sake of drama. So eventually she gives him a note, and it's like, nice one, is all it says. Niseone, one word. And at first I thought it said Onision, because I read it kind of fast. But it's not just a note. See, it's actually a secret code, and then he decodes it, and it's her phone number. I'm still not entirely sure how he got that, like the number from that. I don't really truly get it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just not big brain enough to pick it out. So, yeah, then he gets on the bus because he decides he's not going to skate home. Like rollerblade, not skateboard. And it was at that moment that I remember that rollerblading was a thing. And it was like, my god, there's something I haven't heard of in like 20 years. But it also does resonate with the idea that Onision, I think, is actually slightly older than me. I think we're around the same age. And when we were, like, teenagers, that would have been a thing, yeah. And like that. That's just kind of like, it brings back all these weird memories. Because it's kind of, what I'm getting from this so far is it's kind of this weird amalgamation of, like, what, I don't know, teenage fan fiction kind of stuff is supposed to be, and, like, the, you know, the very emo days of, like, the mid to late 2000s, and even further, and, like, memories from being much younger than that, like, memories from a time before that, because, as I've said before, I've theorized on multiple occasions that Onision was the first emo kid. He is the proto, and, that's not offensive. You should actually take that as a compliment if you hear this, Greg. Proto Man is a very important person. Just own it. Fuck it, whatever, you know? They'll probably get mad at me anyway, but it doesn't matter. Point is that they're on the bus, and he meets his friend Davis. And Davis is, like, very excitable, I guess, is the best way to put it. Because he doesn't say much, so I can't say much about Davis. Just that he's James's friend, and he's very, like, excited. And yeah, okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And he basically serves as, like, our kind of wedge in this little scene to get into, like, what James is thinking. Because it's just all about, like, hey, dude, what are you doing? What you looking at? What you thinking about? He's just kind of, like, being used in this point to be, like, you know, say the thing you're thinking out loud. To kind of give, I don't know, it's a very simple literary technique, but it's one that's very effective. So it's not bad. Like, I don't have a problem with him being used like that. So that's cool. That's fine, you know? And yeah, like, he sees that James is looking out the window, and then he sees this guy named Seth, and he walks up to Abbi, and then they kiss, and then James is, like, really sad, because he thought, like, they had a connection, but it's not the connection that apparently he wanted, because it's more like she wants to be friends, and he wants to be more than that, and at least he's not wearing a fedora, so, you know, I'm not catching any whiffs of the fedora yet, but I get the impression there might be. If what I've heard holds true, there might be a little of that, so we'll see. And he's just kind of like, oh, you know, I'm alright. I guess, you know, I guess I just got that wrong. I guess she doesn't like me the way I like her. And Davis is like, oh, it's okay, pal. Cheer up, buddy. Which is totally fine. Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. His friend got hurt, so, like, him replying like that makes sense. So the only reason I'm clarifying a lot of this is because I've read a lot of other, not read, but listened to a lot of other people talk about this, and certain things, when they talk about stuff like parts like this, they emphasize, like, how bad certain things are, and it's like, it's not nearly as bad as some of the other stuff I've read. So this is actually okay. It's a little stilted, but it's also, this is Onision's first book, if I'm not mistaken, and it kind of reads like someone's first book who's never taken, like, you know, a whole bunch of literature courses and shit in college. So, yeah, that's alright. I'm not going to be too harsh on that. You know, that's okay. And then we get to, like, them having dinner. He has dinner, and his sister complains about how she hates being at a poor school, and is just like, this is all stupid, everything's stupid, and his mom's just like, well, you know, at least the people who work there have jobs, and, you know, bright side of life. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then he, you know, figures out the note, and is like, oh, now I have her number, and, you know, then he calls her, and they have, like, this conversation about, you know, what they're gonna do for their project, and that's the end of the first chapter. So that wasn't the worst. Every other person I've heard talk about this has basically said that, like, from chapter 1, it's the worst ever thing that they've ever read, and the only thing I can think of at this point is that you obviously have not read worse things, because from chapter 1, it's not. It may get worse down the line, but I have read worse things that start off bad in chapter 1. Keep in mind that, you know, my pedigree with a lot of this stuff goes back into things like Sonichu and Sonic High School and the stories of Princess America and, you know, a lot of high school. A lot of, like, fan fictions that are in high school are usually the worst, like Minecraft High School and shit like that. No, this is not the worst thing I've ever read. And as a plus, again, above Empress Teresa, at least it's not fucking boring or confusing. It's a little strange, it's a little meandering, it's very excited, but it's not boring, which is, given what I was reading, is a huge plus. So, I don't know what the next, you know, chapters are going to bring, I don't know how good they're going to be, and I don't know what's going to happen yet, but we're going to find out together. So this is chapter 1 of Stones to Abbigale. I hope you enjoyed this. I realize I didn't get as angry as a lot of people are probably expecting, but give it time. Give it time. I'm sure there'll be something. Anyway, I love you all, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!